Welcome to the Organized Investor PodCLASS with Jerry Goodman and Megan Hubbard from Tennessee Wealth Management. Think of these pod classes as a college of knowledge, and the curriculum is an inside look at how we work with our clients to organize their investments, their retirement, and their affairs. Our process is certainly not the only approach, but it has served our clients well. Listening may materially improve your life as well, but for that to happen, it also takes an open mind, an interest to learn, and your trust in what we're sharing. We focus only on what is relevant and will explain things several times in different ways over multiple classes to ensure you understand their importance. We suggest you subscribe so you'll receive reminders about the next class. And with the tools and information on our website, theorganizedinvestor.com, you can start getting organized right now.
Welcome back, students, to another episode about organizing your investments. From the beginning, we've talked about our goal to improve your overall performance by at least 2% per year, with the hope that level of improvement will materially change your financial future for the better. So that's your good news for the moment. And here's the not so good news, okay? A recent study by Transamerica found that only 17% of Americans over 50 are very confident that they can maintain a comfortable lifestyle in retirement.
Ouch.
Again, that's only 17%.
Yeah.
For people aged 50 and over?
That's kind of a small number, isn't it?
A little bit. In that same study, actually, over 50% fear outliving their savings. So this is why we're talking about your investments today, okay?
Allianz, it's another large company, also did a study, found that a whopping 61% of Americans are more scared of running out of money than they are scared of dying. Think about that. They're more worried about being poor in retirement than they are about being dead in retirement. So if you've ever had that thought, if you've ever felt like, well, the sooner I die, the less I'm going to have to worry about funding that little retirement. So if that's ever crossed your mind, here's a novel idea. If that's crossed your mind, think about doing something maybe to make more money rather than just keeping the same mediocre investment portfolio that you may have had for years. And I'll say, having a chat with us about improving your financial future, it's going to be a lot more pleasant than sitting around attending your funeral or maybe somebody that you love, someone in your family.
That is true. I've never gotten excited about attending a funeral, so there's that.
Unless they have food and adult beverages.
Well, I don't really get invited to those.
Oh, well.
You're getting invited to more fun funerals than me.
Evidently. Well, I don't think there's anybody get invited. I think people just show up. But anyway.
That's true. I'm going to send out invitations to mine, I think.
Okay. A little funeral pre-planning.
Yes. Well, anyways, all of that to be said, I'm Megan Hubbard, and I'm here along with my dad, Jerry Goodman, and you need to be as excited about this podcast as we are. With that riveting introduction out of the way and all the doom and gloom, we have the pedal to the metal and are really ready to roll. So thanks for joining us. You can think of us as Megan and Dad. I'm a former first grade teacher at Christian Academy of Knoxville. And when my dad was in first grade, former student at Moreland Heights Elementary in South Knoxville, I have a feeling he was probably up to no good. But he says he was the
not every day. Not every day. Okay. I had to behave someday, like certain days of the week were my favorites.
I'm sure. Well, I have a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, and Dad attended a non-credit course in jokes and storytelling. He wanted me to share that with you all. Not that,
but I got a good grade in it, even though it was non-credit.
Oh man.
So we don't know, as this podcast is starting off kind of weirdly. We don't know where this podcast may end up, but we do know the topic today, which is: are you more worried about running out of money in retirement than you are about dying? It's kind of like that show. Are you smarter? Was it a fifth grader? Is that what it was, Megan, or a third grader?
It was a fifth grader.
Fifth grader. Okay. Well, kind of like that.
And I'm not smarter than a fifth grader.
Well, you might be. But Allianz found that basically 61% of people that they surveyed, said yes to that question about, are you more worried about running out of money than dying? So think about that for just a minute, okay? Half of everybody, they're more concerned about not having enough money in retirement than they are about dying.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Well,
Kind of.
So Northwestern Mutual, they actually did a survey too, and they surveyed about 2,700 American adults with over $1 million in investable assets. Now, pay attention to the fact that this group has over $1 million in savings. That's not a small amount of money. First, 47% said that they think they need to improve their financial planning. That's almost 1 out of every 2 people surveyed. Next, 1/3 of these same respondents said they believe they could outlive their retirement savings. That's shocking that even for the group that has $1 million of investable assets, that 1/3 of those said they believe they could outlive their retirement savings. So again, 61% of people who are more worried about running out of money than they are about dying. Okay. So that's why we're sharing our very best ideas with you today, because you might be one of these 61% people in this group.
And in addition to our very best ideas, we're also reminding you of things that you can control and what you can do something about. Okay. For example, whether you're already retired or you just plan to be retired at some point, you get to control several things, like how much you're saving for retirement, when you actually do retire, how much you spend during retirement, how your investments are actually invested, all of which can have a major impact on your financial future. But unfortunately, there's just a whole lot of things out there that you can't control. Like you can't control interest rates. You can't do anything much about the stock market. You can't determine or control how much you may ultimately live. And you certainly can't control what the entitlement payments might actually be from the government, over a long period of time.
So here's some more bad news you'd prefer probably not to hear. I'm just like spreading all the joy today. As you know, you can control when you start receiving your social security. I always get that tongue-tied. Social security benefits, but you can't control how much it may ultimately end up being. Now, that's because politicians have ignored fixing the entitlement programs for decades and decades. And it's now to the point where it's expected to be out of money in about 8 to 9 years. I'm just shocked by this, because this means I'm getting no money, people. Right. Nobody is addressing this problem. This is a big problem.
At least you're still laughing about it, so that's good. You kept your sense of humor.
What else am I going to do, right?
Well, true.
There's nothing I can do. In fact, nobody's even suggesting a plan to fix it. Maybe that's what I do. Maybe I suggest a plan. I'm sure they'd listen to me.
Well, perhaps. And I hate to say this, but it's really not if, it becomes a question of when the Social Security trust funds become insolvent. Maybe there's going to be mandatory cuts in the benefits across the board. I think that's what's expected to happen, and it's going to be 23%. So, for example, let's say a $3,000 per month Social Security payment. That's obviously equivalent to $36,000 per year. So if that were to drop by 23%, that's a reduction of $8,280 per year. So it's not a massive amount of money, but it's significant and be meaningful to some people. And these are mandatory defaults that are set to go into place. So rather than doing something to address this problem, it looks like they're going to just let the defaults go into effect and let the payments go down.
Yay.
Yeah. Happy.
So to make matters worse, they may also decide to means test Social Security payments based on your income or net worth.
That seems sort of mean, doesn't it? To means
it does.
Test.
That's a good name for it, I guess.
Yeah.
So someone who has saved for their retirement may actually be penalized by receiving a reduced Social Security benefit versus someone who hasn't. Since Social Security is to help fund your retirement, let's also spend a few minutes on the subject of retirement plans, because, this is something that you have some control over, right?
So you may realize this, but some people may not, that most people these days, you probably realize most people do not have access to a pension plan. Because going back to the early 1980s, employers began to realize that, hey, there's a lot of economic risk with these plans, and it's risk to them. That's because the actual pension plan, it is an obligation to provide lifetime income to those retired employees. But they really didn't know how long these employees might live, what interest rates might be, what the stock market might do. There's a lot of unknowns. So along came this loophole in the tax code, and this is where the whole 401k plan system was kind of born, where it came from initially. So this allowed the employer to transfer that risk from the company down to the employees with this new plan. And even though they're offering these plans to employees, and some of them are even making matching contributions to the plans, the ultimate risk to that employee of having enough money really kind of is a responsibility now of the employee. No longer the company, it's the employee, the retired employee's responsibility.
So currently, about half of all companies offer a 401k, and about 60 million people have signed up for their company plan. And, that's helpful. However, a 401k is one of the only investments people, have that they may not know how much it costs. They may not know the quality of the investments, and they may not know the level of risk it's invested in. So, sure, the employees get a plan disclosure document, but they don't read that. Who reads that really, right? And they probably wouldn't understand it even if they did read it.
So this is partly because the mutual fund industry has been able to protect themselves from regulation that would expose the danger in the pricing of the products. Now, in fact, the Government Accountability Office, which kind of seems like an oxymoron, okay, but they found 45% of plan participants in these types of plans, they're not able to use the information given in the disclosure document to determine what the cost of the 401k plan even is.
So almost half can't determine the cost of their 401k from the information they were given. About 41% of participants incorrectly believe that they do not pay any plan fees for their 401k. So 4 out of 10 people have the misconception that the 401k plan is not costing them anything, which is simply not true.
Yeah, and we understand this. I mean, but we would say there's some great 401k plans out there. Some of them, but some of them actually are pretty lousy, and they have poor fund choices. They have mediocre performance. Maybe the fees are outrageously high. Now, on the investment page of our website, there is a 15-page summary from the Department of Labor titled "A Look at 401k Plans." Okay. Now, you talk about boring. This would be a really kind of a riveting document to pick up and try to read, but it's there for a reason. It's to explain that there are fees and costs inside of these plans, and they're trying to explain it to them. The DOJ, the problem is the Department of Labor, I should say, requires that the fees just be reasonable. And they don't specify any kind of certain percentage or total amount that a 401k can actually charge.
So back in PodCLASS number 12, we actually explained the whole concept of pay to play. And we even have a summary on the investments page of our website with that same name, pay to play. Now, that summary includes links to the websites of the largest investment companies in this country. It may not surprise you to learn that these types of pay-to-play relationships exist within the same 401k plans. So, for example, if an employer can't afford to provide a 401k plan to the employees, there may be a revenue sharing arrangement back to the plan itself that helps to pay for the expenses. Now, in many cases, the employees are effectively covering the costs themselves from the internal fees that they're being charged by the mutual fund investments they own in their 401k.
So at its very worst, this type of revenue sharing, it's a way to hide fees because no one sees the money changing hands from one place to another. It's basically also a way to drain what can be a large sum of money from these 401k plans, which comes from a percentage-based fee that the employers are paying, and that percentage may never go down.
This is also another reason why employees may believe that their 401k plan is actually free, when in reality, it may actually be more expensive. And just like we mentioned in PodCLASS number 12, does your financial advisor know about these pay-to-play relationships between their 401k plans and these various product and service companies? Of course they know. Has your financial planner ever pointed this out to you? Probably not. Of course they haven't.
You're quickly climbing the learning curve by listening to our Organized Investor PodCLASS. Your instructors are Megan Hubbard and her favorite dad, Jerry Goodman. Listening to at least 12 PodCLASSes is recommended, and it also helps to subscribe on your podcast platform.
So unfortunately, if you participate in a company 401k, you really don't have a lot of options to reduce the fees and the expenses. And what I mean by that is there's not a lot you can change because most of the cost, most of the investment choices, they're already set by the company. So either you participate in the 401k plan or you don't. And some of the investment choices may actually have a lower internal cost than others, which, that may help a little.
Now, the takeaway from this is some retirement plans may be less expensive than investing on your own, but some may not be. That all really depends on what you're comparing the 401k plan to. So there is a cost for you to have money in a 401k, but this cost is only one part of the decision, really.
And in several of these podcast episodes, we've mentioned that we have, for example, 84 advisory accounts that have at least a 5-year track record. And through January of 2024, that 5-year net annual return was 14.06%. Now, if you compound that 14.06% over a 5-year period, run it forward, it's an increase of about 92%. So over those 5 years, on average, these 84 accounts, they didn't double in value, but they were pretty close. And these returns, they're net of any kind of fees or costs.
Now, when you compare the historical returns of your 401k, that is after any costs, to a return like 14% per year, which is also a net rate of return, that may be all you need to know. The cost of the 401k and the cost of our advisory accounts are only one component in the total net return. So the point is, sure, the cost is important, but comparing the actual historical performance of your 401k to the historical performance our clients have experienced may be even more important.
And what we mean by that is, you do need to understand that your 401k is not free. And why are we talking about this? It's because 401k assets, they've grown from 3.1 trillion back in 2011. They're up to $7 trillion now as of June of 2023. That's more than double in value in less than 12 years. So a 401k plan is is either owned by somebody that still works at the company, or maybe they used to work at the company. So if you're still working there and you're upset about the fees or feel like the returns have been kind of mediocre, your only option really is to invest in the 401k plan or not, okay? You don't have any other real choices. Sure, you get to decide on your investment choices from the list of available options, but you don't have much really control beyond that.
If you're still employed there, you might be allowed to do what is referred to as an in-service distribution, or sometimes they might call it an in-service withdrawal, which is a transfer to an IRA. And your plan administrator, they can tell you more about that if that's the route you were to go. We even have a fact sheet that explains in-service withdrawals on the investments page of our website, theorganizedinvestor.com.
So that's for somebody that's still working at the company, okay? Now, if you're no longer working there, if you've long since left employment there, you have like 4 different options, 4 choices. One, you can just continue to leave it at the 401k plan, maybe where it is now. Number 2, you can take it out and pay the income taxes, which usually people are not too excited about that. 3, they can move it to a retirement plan, maybe where they're currently working now. So you're not at that job, but you're in a new company, so you can move it to that plan, possibly. Or 4thly, you can move it to an IRA.
Now, about half of everyone we meet has at least one orphaned account somewhere, and many of those will be a 401k with a company they no longer even work for. So some of this 401k money is still there because they may think there's no cost to do so. Whether you're talking about money in a 401k plan or other investments you may have, our number one best suggestion is to have a general understanding of what you're invested in and what the returns have been for those investments as well.
I mean, for example, do you know what the net return for your 401k plan has been, say, per year for the last 5 years? Some people know this, but some may not. And a net rate of return, again, is after any kind of fees or costs or expenses have been deducted. And it's a nice, clean number that you compare to any number of other things.
So the point is that a mediocre return is still a mediocre return, regardless of how much or how little the cost is, okay? And if you can't determine the net return of your 401k, do you know if it came close to doubling in the value over the last 5 years? Now, if you can't take a few minutes to see what your 401k performance has been, you're missing a great opportunity and maybe leaving a lot of money on the table.
So what next? Question mark. Okay, what are your options? Well, the size of our average client household at the moment is in hundreds of thousands of dollars, let's say. So, however, the minimum size for us to manage an account like this, it can be as little as $50,000, and possibly even less than that, but we can't promise that here. So the advisory fee that we charge to manage something like that, it may be less than the internal cost buried in some mutual fund that you own, or maybe even less than a 401k plan that you're ignoring. So if the performance of that neglected account, if it's been, let's say, less than great, we can explain how to bring it under our management, which is, really a quite simple process.
And if you're not yet a client, this can be your trial run account, which will give you a chance to work with us and see if it would be a good fit. And, for these types of advisory accounts, the advisory fee is only for the time you're invested, and there's no fee to end it. So it's perfectly liquid should you decide to do something else in the future. With that in mind, PodCLASSes number 11 and number 12 covered the historical performance our clients have realized within the advisory accounts we manage for them.
And we've said before, these 84 advisory accounts, they have at least a 5-year track record. The average return has been 14.06%. And that return, that already reflects the advisory fee that's probably less than some other fee you might be paying. It already reflects the fact that we're avoiding mutual funds to reduce cost and improve the performance. It already reflects the fact that we are being very selective with our investment choices, and we're focusing on stocks that have a dividend growth strategy because of the exceptional returns of these types of stocks.
And as an example of the potential for stocks that raise their dividends, you can review the performance summary of the DSIP list on the investments page of our website. The DSIP list is a Wells Fargo research list with a 30-year track record of 12% per year, which is about 20% more than the S&P 500 index over the same period of time. Now, as a financial advisor, it's easy to become skeptical about new ideas and strategies. And, after we first learned of the DSIP list, it took us about 6 months to finally become more confident that this was something different and something special.
And I will say that because it took us so long to embrace this current strategy, we're assuming it's going to take some time for you as well. And this is why we keep repeating this and kind of harping on this concept. So we're going to keep explaining our strategy of investing stocks with this dividend growth strategy, this approach where companies who constantly and increasingly raise their dividends each and every year. And we're going to continue to use that DSIP list as a great example of what is possible with these types of stocks until you either, I guess, believe us or just get tired of listening to us and quit listening.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen.
Absolutely not.
I don't know, though. I get tired of listening to myself sometimes, but as usual, we've covered a whole lot in this PodCLASS, and we want to close with a few comments. Okay. So first off, creating these PodCLASSes, it's a huge investment of time, but it's worth it because they really are the most convenient way for you to hear what we've been sharing and to learn a lot of things you don't know, but you need to know. And one of our goals is to educate the family of our current clients for 2 particular reasons. Okay. So obviously, for a smooth transition when they may become beneficiaries of their parents' accounts, but also to allow them to benefit personally right now.
So for somebody who's not yet a client, we invite you to listen to our approach, to sit down and even at some point maybe have a chat with us to see if working together would be a good fit for everybody involved. You're also welcome to join us for one of our live in-person and, let me say, fun workshops. We conduct them in the conference center of our building, which is down the hall from our office, which is in Landmark Center at the Paper Mill Road exit in beautiful West Knoxville. Now, on the workshop page of our website, which again, it's theorganizedinvestor.com, you're going to find the dates and times of the workshops. There's a video. There's even a way to reserve your seats.
And next, we constantly remind listeners that if you've ignored getting your estate planning documents in order, congratulations, because you're still living and it's worked out for you up to this point. But you know what? You might not always be able to beat the odds on that. So we invite you to listen to PodCLASSes 4, 5, and 6, where we'll explain how we can probably save you about $1,000 with a local estate planning attorney for a flat fee versus working with an attorney on your own. Now, if someone or maybe everyone has suggested that you use a revocable living trust, you need to go listen very closely to PodCLASS number 6. In it, we unwrap the massive campaign of misinformation designed to mislead you about the real costs versus the benefits of this option.
And if you have any question in your mind about, well, why would I listen to us? Why should you listen to us talking about estate planning? Let me just challenge you. Listen to podcast number 6, and you're going to understand why you should be listening to the message that we have on that particular podcast. It's quite insightful, and it's information that we promise you no one has ever told you, and it's going to surprise you what we're going to explain. So, our favorite part of these pod classes is when we get to tell you about the rates of return that we shared. They're for informational purposes, and past performance is no guarantee of future results. How exciting is that, Megan?
So exciting.
It is. So the returns for each of our client accounts, they're also based on the client's individual circumstances, such as when they started the account, what their investment objective was, and various other attributes of their situation. Now, these rates returned for our advisory clients, they were compiled from a month-end performance report for each of those 190 accounts, respectively. And it's way too much information to try to put on our website in an understandable way. So in addition to covering all this summary information that we have here, we're happy to explain all of this to you either in a face-to-face meeting at our office. Maybe we do a Zoom call, which maybe might be a little more convenient. But the takeaway from this is we have a lot of boring documentation to back up all of these statistics, and we're happy to cover it with anybody if you're brave enough to go through it with us.
I bet there is a line already forming outside of our door as
Megan,
we are recording this.
The phone's ringing. I can hear it right now. I want to go see the documentation.
So please feel free to contact us with any questions you may have. Also, be sure to follow us on social media. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. Also, save us to your favorite PodCLASS player to receive reminders of future episodes. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you get notifications of when we release a new episode, because we have more to share, which means you have more to learn. So join us next time. And as always, thanks for listening, and class is dismissed.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the Organized Investor or TN Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and are not intended as investment advice or solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning or before making any investment decision. And please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. The Organized Investor cannot accept trade or account instructions on or through this platform. Please contact us directly at contactus@tnwealthmanagement.com or 865-415-2060 to place a trade or for trade or account-related questions. Brokerage and advisory services are provided by TN Wealth Management through Prospera Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. The Organized Investor is a brand name operated by TN Wealth Management for educational platform purposes.